Hey guys, welcome back. I've had a few people request that I do a review of the DIOR Backstage Face and Body Foundation, so that's what we're going to do today. It is currently 3 in the afternoon, so it's a late start for doing a foundation test, but we're going to do it anyways because I'm a bit of a night owl and I know I'm going to have this on my face for at least 8 hours, if not 9, by the time I do my check-in. So let's do this. So straight up, if this seems a little bit rushed, it's because it's a race against time. I currently have the monitor sitting in front of me. Bennett has been napping for almost 2 hours now. I had to leave work early because he was sick at daycare, so I picked him up, brought him home, got him cleaned up and into bed. God only knows how much longer he's going to sleep for, so I'm going to stop rambling and we're going to do this. For primer, I don't have anything on yet except for a color corrector. I went through all of my primers and tried to pick out one that wasn't blurring and that wasn't a radiance enhancing one because I don't want anything to skew the actual results of the foundation. So the one that I came up with to use today, just a little wee baby sample here. This is the Smashbox Photo Finish Primerizer. It's a primer with moisturizer in one, and it doesn't make any claims to blur or brighten or do anything else, mattify, any of that kind of thing. So just wanted something as a base on my face, but don't want to skew any sort of results. We're taking a highly scientific approach to this. No, we're not. So let's just get this underway here. While I'm applying this, I will tell you that the DIOR foundation is $50 at Sephora here in Canada. And for that, you get more than your standard size of foundation. You get 50 milliliters in this bottle. By comparison, the Too Faced Born This Way has 30 milliliters, and the Too Faced Do You has 40 milliliters in it, and they're going to run you roughly the same kind of price point. Before we apply it, I'll just read you a little bit of information from the Sephora website. Fully understanding you could read this yourself, but I'm going to do it anyway so you don't have to go to 2 different places on the interwebs to find information. So it claims to have a medium coverage and a matte finish, says that it's good for sensitive, normal, dry, combination, and oily skin, so basically the entire range. And it is a foundation for the face and body, comes in 40 shades with a natural matte finish and medium buildable coverage that's waterproof and sweat resistant. It says that it fuses with the skin, resisting extreme conditions like workout sessions, water, and even high temperatures and humid environments. We will put that to the test today because it is currently 30 some odd damn degrees out there with the Humidex, never mind the fact that it's September 21st, and it also looks a little bit like a monsoon out there. There were periods of really hard rain this afternoon, hence my hair is just, it just keeps growing. It's just getting bigger and bigger. Like it's ridiculous. This is the barometer. I could just be a weather girl just based on my hair volume at any given point. So let's get to applying it. First of all, I'll give it a shake and then I'll show you the packaging. So here is what the packaging looks like. It's just very chic and classic looking. This isn't a glass bottle, it is plastic. If you can see, I can kind of bend it in a bit there. We are going to ignore how janky my nails are. The description of the contents is on the back here, and I have the shade 2W. And then when you twist the top off, it is a squeezy bottle. All right, so I've got a sponge and I've got a brush. I'm gonna do half and half, just see if it makes any difference, but I do have it all here on the back of my hand. What I can say about the consistency of this, it isn't super runny, but it is quite liquidy. Like it's not a thick, you can see it sort of running. You can see it here where it's running down. So it does have good viscosity, if we can use big words. But it's almost like a cream to powder finish. It has a really nice feel to it after it's been applied to the skin. I think husband is home. I can hear footsteps. Either that or we have an intruder. The other thing to note is the smell. There is a very slight fragrance to it. It smells a little bit on the perfumey side, but it's not overpowering in any way. I actually really quite like it, but It does dissipate. It's not one of those things where you apply it to your face and you can still smell it a few minutes later, but when it's on the back of your hand like that, you certainly can smell it. So now that it's dotted everywhere, I'm just going to go ahead and blend that out. And then I'll use, like I said, the brush on the other side. Alright, I'm going to bring it in alarmingly close to my face so that you can really see the finish of this once it's just applied. While I'm thinking about it, hold. I'm going to apply just a little bit to the back of my hand, and then in a few minutes we'll see if it's oxidized. Then I'll apply another little bit to it and see what happens once it dries down. So here it is on the skin, and I'm just looking in the mirror here because the viewfinder's not always the best indicator for me. I really can't see any difference between the sponge application and the brush. I will say that the sponge does soak up quite a bit of the excess product, so I do kind of like that. It just makes it easier to blend it out because you're not just dragging it along your skin, you are like sort of pressing it into place. So I do like that. It doesn't show any spongy bounce marks. Sometimes you get that with foundations where you can see where you've dabbed it with the sponge. I'm not seeing any of that here. But if you look over here, like I do have, I'm going to call it a freckle. I'm going to refuse to call it a sunspot because that sounds like something that people in their 80s have. So that is an aggressive freckle. That's what we're going to call that. And you can still see it through here. I also have freckles on my nose, and you can still see it coming through the foundation there. I do have a throwback to my youth here. Somehow my skin has decided that despite being in its 30s, it's still going to break out every now and then. And I have one down here as well. So you can see that the redness is still coming through the foundation as well. It's not particularly like a blurring foundation. I can still see texture on my skin and in between my eyebrows here. Oh God, be nice in the comments, okay? I know this is very close to my face. I'm doing this for you. I am. So, it has not already started creasing in my nose. A little tiny bit down here. Maybe because I used the brush on this side. And the brush was too big to get into that little crease. And also up in here, it's not quite all that nicely blended, again because the brush is a little bit too big for that. The sponge, I think, is the way to go with this foundation. But overall, it is blended out quite nicely. Not a lot of patchiness, no streakiness from the brush either. So it applies very evenly. I'm going to bump you back out now. That's in. Out. Here we go. We'll see just how sweatproof it is because these lights do get very, very warm on me. And I can feel a little bit of moisture already starting to creep through over here. But in terms of finish, I like this foundation. First of all, it doesn't feel super sticky on the skin. It still needs to dry down a little bit, but this is one of the only foundations that I have that I don't feel I have to set it. A lot of them, I feel I have to because it just remains so tacky that I'm afraid it's going to brush off on clothes or if I hug somebody or whatever. It just feels like a liability to me. Also, I like the actual finish of it. I don't have oily skin. I don't have particularly dry skin. In winter it will get drier and I will get dry patches, but for the most part I have fairly normal skin. It can be a little bit finicky, but I wouldn't say that I have sensitive skin. So basically I just have mediocre run-of-the-mill skin. So for me, I really like this finish. I don't mind dewy, but sometimes dewy can be over the top. This looks like skin to me. This has, like, there's no highlight on there. That's just foundation and me, I guess. But it still looks very natural. It hasn't blanked everything out. Sometimes when you apply like a full face of foundation, it can look very flat and mask-like, and that's where we have to go in with contour and, you know, blush and highlight, all that kind of jazz, just to create that dimension again. Here, yes, I would be inclined to add blush, at least just to add a bit more color to my face, but you can still see, like there, you can still see the natural groove of my jawline or my cheekbones, I guess, and you can see where that contour would fit, and it doesn't look mask-like and flat. So I really do like the finish on this. I am starting to sweat because I'm a heathen and a human, and that's what we do when it's hot, and it's motherfucking hot. So let's take a look. Okay, so I'm not gonna bring it in this close. I will just let you know what I'm seeing in the mirror, because nobody needs to see the sweat actually coming out of my skin. I like you, but we're not that close. So it's just sitting on top of it, and I'm just going to, for shits and giggles, wipe it away and see what happens. It's not picking up on my finger, which my camera will never focus on, so there it is. It's not picking up on the finger, it's not dragging around, it hasn't completely wiped away. Obviously, I think if you were out in the middle of a bloody rainstorm, there's going to be disruption to your face, or if you're really scrubbing at it, obviously that's going to do it, but a light sort of patting away of any sweat or moisture, I think it's going to survive it. I really do. I've got some more on this side. If I just pat it away there, no big deal. So although I said I don't feel I have to set it, I am going to. For me, it's really just the next logical step in my makeup habits and regime. So what I'm going to use is the loose Fit Me powder from Maybelline. This one is not the mattifying one, it's just a translucent, lightweight, translucent coverage, natural look powder. So the last thing I want to do, I have that little swatch on the back of my hand, is just apply a little bit of fresh foundation beside it. So this is the fresh application. You can see how wet it still is, and then this is the one that has dried down. And it is a little bit darker. I think that's going to happen with any foundation, but it's not anything that I would even caution you about. It's not really altering the undertone. It's very, very similar to the fresh application. And yeah, it's not anything that I think you're going to have to be concerned about going a shade lighter to accommodate for that, or getting something that's more neutral because it's going to dry down more yellow. It is staying true to its actual tone, and I'm really impressed by that. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead, finish up the rest of my makeup, and then I will check back in. I'm going to wait at least 8 hours. I may be able to push it to 9. We'll see just how exhausted I am later on tonight. So I will see you in a few hours. Alright, I am back. It is now 11:38 at night, so I've had the makeup on for almost 9 hours. I did not do anything particularly strenuous, and I didn't spend a lot of time outside because it is windy as hell out today. But that's probably actually a good thing, because it gives me an idea of how this makeup performs during what I would consider to be a typical work day. 8 to 9 hours, no major physical exertion, just wearing the makeup and how it reacts with my skin and how it lasts throughout the day. So I have my mirror down in front of me. I've got the ever horrifying magnified side pointed at me, and I will bump it in a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. But when I look at it, it still kind of looks damn good, to be honest. But there are little areas that I will bring to your attention. Across my nose, it has begun to separate a little bit. Why don't I just bring this in, because it's just going to make more sense that way. Oh God. Here's where I begin to question just how much facial hair I may or may not have. Alright, so right across the nose, I'm hoping that it'll show on the monitor, but I can see some mottling happening. I can see some modeling beginning to happen across the top of my nose where it's just sort of separating right along in here. Sometimes I will get that quite frequently actually up in here, with depending on the foundation obviously. And here it's really not doing that. Like often it's very obvious that it's beginning to separate around here because there's little darker patches of it, but that's not the case here. It is doing that to some degree along here. You can see that the color just isn't very even. It kind of looks like I have a little tiny mustache. Yay. But that's basically from eating dinner, wiping my mouth, and just sort of pushing everything around. But like no big collections in the creases around my nose. It has sort of worn away from this area. Again, that's from just wiping my mouth and blowing my nose and crap like that. But if we look at the overall, like the larger areas of my skin, it's still on there. It still feels very comfortable. It hasn't started to separate around here or pool in any certain areas. And the forehead overall is looking very good as well. So as I mentioned during the close-ups, it still feels comfortable. It really does not feel like I'm wearing a full face of makeup, which means a lot to me because there are foundations out there that by the end of the day, I just want to wash my face. I begin to feel like I'm wearing a mask because I can feel how much product's on my face. My skin just doesn't feel like it's breathing properly. Whereas now, 9 hours later, there's really no discomfort. There is a reason that this foundation was in my recent favorites video with Hayley Evans. Check her channel out. I love it. I love the way it looks. I think it makes my skin look fantastic without being overly dramatic about it. It just looks like skin. It just amplifies what you're already working with, and I really, really like this foundation, and I would strongly recommend it as well. Obviously, because I don't have oily skin or extremely dry skin or particularly sensitive skin, I can't really say how it would work with those particular skin concerns. Do your research, watch other reviews, read up online if you have any of those problems. But for me, with, like I said, fairly generic skin that can, I was about to say take a beating, but that's just awful. That's a terrible analogy. Skin that is not hyper-reactive and skin that just kind of sits there and just does what it's supposed to do, I guess. For that perspective, this is a nice, durable foundation, breathable, comfortable. I give it an A+. That is it. Those are my thoughts on it. If there's anything that you wanted to know about it that I forgot to mention, feel free to leave me a question down in the comments below and I will try my best to answer it for you. But I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to watch, and I will see you in my next video. Until then, just be a decent human being. Bye for now.